Ever notice that the moment that something feels like a have to, every part of you wants to resist it, even if it's something that you actually want to do? Maybe you've put off replying to an email. Maybe you've avoided basic tasks like showering or eating. Or maybe you've ignored a friend's text because responding felt like too much. For many people with ADHD, it's not laziness, it's not defiance, it's avoidance, and it can feel automatic, confusing, and frustrating. So today I'll talk about why ADHD brains can slip into avoidance so quickly, how that shows up in everyday life, socially, emotionally, and practically, and share a few science-backed strategies that you can use right away to interrupt the pattern. This is ADHD where we talk about everyday life and ADHD. I'm your host, Dr. J. I'm a licensed psychologist who works with people with ADHD. If you've ever wondered why your brain resists, withdraws, or shuts down, even when you really care about something, this episode is for you. So let's get into what is avoidance and how it's connected to ADHD. Avoidance is exactly what it sounds like: steering away from something that feels uncomfortable, effortful, uncertain, or emotionally loaded. And here's the important part. What you're avoiding, it isn't always negative. Sometimes it's something that you want. Sometimes it's something that matters to you. ADHD is fundamentally a disorder of executive function, the brain's management system responsible for task initiation, working memory, planning, and self-regulation. One of the most impaired executive functions in ADHD is task initiation, literally getting started. Research shows that individuals with ADHD have significant difficulty with the activation phase of tasks, particularly when those tasks are not immediately rewarding, require multiple steps, lack clear structure, or feel emotionally threatening. This isn't about motivation. Neuroimaging studies show differences in how the ADHD brain activates when faced with tasks. And I want to be clear, emotional dysregulation amplifies the response. So this means small stressors can feel big really fast. What seems like a minor task to others can trigger a disproportionate emotional response from you. Uncertainty or potential criticism can feel threatening. ADHD brains have a heightened sensitivity to perceived negative evaluation. Perfectionism makes starting feel risky. If you can't do it perfectly, why even start at all? Emotional overwhelm triggers shutdown. And when emotions become too intense, the brain essentially hits the brakes. Another thing to note is that your nervous system can interpret demands as threats. So I want to be clear here that while the specific concept of demand avoidance in ADHD is still emerging in the research, the underlying mechanisms, so executive dysfunction, emotional dysregulation, and a stress response, are well documented. Here's what happens. When something feels like a demand, your nervous system can interpret it as pressure or threat. This is particularly true when you're already stressed, tired, or emotionally depleted. That pressure activates a stress response, leading to things like procrastination, so I'll do it later when I feel better, shutdown, complete inability to initiate, irritability, so defensive reactions to requests, and overwhelm. Everything feels like it's too much. And avoidance is a very effective short-term coping strategy. It reduces discomfort immediately. The problem is that it's maladaptive, and in these instances, it often leads to increased problems later. So let's look at what avoidance can look like in daily life. The first thing I want to talk about is task-based avoidance. This can be ignoring emails for days or maybe even weeks because replying feels like too much, putting off scheduling appointments, even important ones like medical checkups, leaving voicemails unheard because checking them feels overwhelming, or opening a task, then immediately switching to something else. Now let's talk about some examples of emotional avoidance. Feeling instantly resistant when someone says, "Can you please?" Struggling more when someone reminds you to do something that you were probably going to do anyway. Getting disproportionately irritated at small requests. Avoiding hobbies once you decide that you should practice regularly. So an example of this can be like wanting to improve your piano skills and then setting a goal. And as soon as that happens, running away from that goal. Here's some examples of subtle avoidance. So this can be scrolling for hours instead of starting the thing that you're supposed to, doing lower priority tasks to avoid a harder one. This is an example of productive procrastination, over researching before starting, which is an example of analysis paralysis, or waiting for the right mood to start. These avoidance patterns create real consequences. So let's first look at behavioral ones. This can look like last-minute rushes fueled by adrenaline. You finally start when the deadline creates enough panic to override the avoidance. This can also lead to shame spirals after avoidance. So why can't I just be normal and do the things that I'm supposed to? Also, another thing that comes up is avoiding self-care because it feels like just another obligation. There's also relational consequences. So an example is tension in relationships. Partners, friends, or family may say things to you like, "Why is this so hard for you? You said you'd do it. I don't understand." There can also be damaged trust. So when you constantly avoid commitments and people stop relying on you, then they stop trusting you and you stop trusting yourself. Here's also an internal consequence, and I want to call this the avoidance snowball. The more something is avoided, the heavier it feels. An email unanswered for 2 days feels unmanageable. 2 weeks? Now it's carrying shame, guilt, and a fear of judgment. Here's what you want to consider. When do you notice yourself pulling away? Is it when you're overwhelmed, when you feel judged, when you're tired, or when something matters a lot? Awareness is powerful. Once you can name the avoidance in real time, you can start interrupting it before it snowballs. You can't eliminate stress. You can't eliminate responsibility. And you can't eliminate discomfort from life. But you can change how you respond to it and the urges that arise. Now let's discuss a few strategies. The first one is to commit to 2 to 5 minutes. Starting is often the hardest part. Your brain perceives the entire task as one giant threatening block. Breaking it down reduces the threat. So what you might want to try is setting a timer for 2 minutes. Tell yourself you only have to work for those 2 minutes and then you can stop. Often starting is about 80% of the battle. Once you're in motion, continuing feels easier. If you stop at 2 minutes, that's okay. You still did more than what you would have if you avoided it entirely. Examples of this are, I'll reply to just one email, I'll just put away the dishes from the dishwasher, not clean the entire kitchen, or I'll just write one sentence of my report. Strategy number 2 is body doubling. Body doubling means working along someone else, either in person or virtually. Research on ADHD shows that external structure and presence can significantly improve task initiation and sustained attention. Ways to try this are to work in a coffee shop or library where other people are working, using virtual body doubling platforms where you can see others working on their tasks, or calling a friend and both of you working on something while you're on the phone together. Number 3 is to check for overwhelm. Avoidance often spikes when your system is already depleted. So you want to ask yourself, am I tired? Because sleep deprivation dramatically impairs executive functioning. Am I hungry? Because low blood sugar affects self-regulation and decision-making. Am I emotionally overloaded? Because if you're already taxed, more stressors aren't going to help your situation. If you're depleted, you want to address that first. Trying to force task initiation when your nervous system is already stressed will usually backfire. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is eat, rest, or maybe take a short walk before attempting a task. Number 4 is to separate identity from behavior. So shame increases resistance, compassion reduces it. So instead of saying things like, I'm so lazy, I'm a failure, I can't do anything right, try a phrase like, I am experiencing avoidance right now. My brain is having a stress response to this task. Here's a little concrete practice that I like. So when you notice self-critical thoughts, pause, place your hand on your chest, and say aloud or internally, this is hard because my brain works differently. I'm doing my best with the tools I have right now. Number 5 is to change your language around demands. I want to be really clear. Language matters. Have to and should can trigger resistance in ADHD brains. Instead of, I have to reply to this email, Try this instead. I'm choosing to reply to this email because I value this relationship. Or I'm choosing to do this because it aligns with my goals. This isn't just about positive thinking, it's about restoring a sense of agency. When tasks feel imposed from outside, resistance increases. When you reconnect with why you're choosing to do something, the threat response can decrease. And finally, number 6 is to build sustainable structure. It's really important to create environmental scaffolding that makes starting things easier. The first thing here is visual cues. So you may want to leave a book on your pillow that you intend to read, put your running shoes by the door, or place your pill bottle next to the coffee maker. You also want to reduce decision points. So create a morning routine checklist so you don't have to decide everything each day. You may want to consider meal prepping on Sundays so that you have weeknight dinners throughout the week, or lay out your clothes the night before. You may also want to pair hard tasks with dopamine. So what this can look like is listening to your favorite music while you're completing chores, watching a TV show while folding laundry, or getting coffee at your favorite cafe while you're answering emails. Remember that avoidance is often a stress response. The goal isn't to overpower it, it's to calm it. The more you approach yourself with flexibility instead of force, the less your nervous system needs to rebel. Small changes in language, structure, and self-talk can create just enough safety to build momentum. When your brain pushes back against tasks, responsibilities, or even hobbies that you enjoy, it's usually trying to protect you from overwhelm. The problem isn't that you're incapable, it's that your nervous system is reacting fast and automatically. This can look like procrastination, shutdown, irritability, or last-minute urgency. The goal isn't to eliminate your to-do list altogether. It's to reduce the sense of threat around tasks by bringing choice back into the picture. You can shift your language, adjust your routines or structure, and reframe your expectations in ways that increase flexibility and self-compassion. That's it for this episode of ADHD And. Thanks so much for joining me. Let me know one thing that you're working on in terms of avoidance in the comments. If any of this hit home, especially the tension between resistance and responsibility, you'll want to check out our episode on ADHD and accountability, because avoidance is just one side of the coin. The other is learning how to hold yourself accountable in ways that actually work for your brain without piling up on guilt and self-criticism. And make sure to subscribe for more ADHD resources like this.